In March of 2004, a 22-year-old man walked into the lobby of a Bronx housing project. He said goodbye to his girlfriend at the elevator. Then, after the elevator doors closed, he ended his own life. The entire moment was captured by a police surveillance camera that had been installed to protect residents. The footage should have remained locked away as evidence. Instead, it escaped police custody. Within days, it appeared on a shock site called Junction, raising questions about how confidential police surveillance footage had been leaked online. An internal affairs investigation was launched, which never fully determined who was responsible. Junction was born in 1999 when the internet was still a wilderness without filters, algorithms, or content moderation. A group of friends in Atlanta created it as a hobby, a private competition, to see who could find the most disturbing images on the web. They named it after a children's educational song from Schoolhouse Rock, turning a lesson about grammar into a slogan about human dysfunction. What started as an inside joke between a handful of people quickly grew into something far larger than anyone expected. By the early 2000s, the site was showing millions of ads every month and pulling in thousands of unique visitors. It ranked among the most popular shock sites, not because it offered games or funny videos, but because it showed people things they could never unsee. The homepage presented itself as a digital archive of the random and the bizarre. But visitors quickly discovered that most of its content existed somewhere between explicit adult material, real-world violence, and what its creators described as humor. Just a heads up, the real names of these features were far worse than what I'm about to say, so I'm softening them to help keep this video up. The architecture of the site was deceptively simple. There were sections for pictures, videos, audio clips, written jokes, and downloadable games. A forum ran beneath the surface where regular users spent hours ranking content and arguing about what deserved to be seen. Each day brought new material. A feature called Clown of the Day showcased a photograph of a random person, often wearing absurd clothing or caught in an embarrassing moment, with sarcastic commentary that elevated mockery into an art form. If an image was humiliating enough, it earned promotion to Clown of the Week. Strangers' worst moments frozen in time and voted on for entertainment. Visitors could submit brief phrases to a section called the Forget It bin, where opinions and mottos were displayed without any moderation or filtering. The editorials covered everything from politics to bodily functions, written in a style that pretended to be intellectual, while deliberately testing the boundaries of good taste. This created a rhythm for repeat visitors. You did not stumble onto Junction by accident and leave. You checked it every day. The same way people later checked social media feeds, because missing a day meant missing whatever new line had been crossed. The people who kept coming back were not all bad. Many were ordinary teens and young adults who had accidentally found something they were never meant to see, then kept returning because part of them felt sick and part of them could not look away. The site relied on a basic human instinct. People looked longer than they wanted to until the scary stuff stopped feeling scary. The people who made the site understood this better than most. They knew that if they kept showing the audience things that broke the rules, they could make even the worst material feel normal. And once it felt normal, many users could no longer stop. The pictures ranged from medical anomalies and accident scenes to parody advertisements and street signs. The video library was where the site built its reputation. Clips showed everything from extreme stunts and pranks to footage of real accidents and serious injuries. Around the year 2000, the site hosted an entire section devoted to violent clips. One of the site's most infamous sections showed footage from Iraq, including captured soldiers and scenes so graphic that even the site's own webmasters warned people not to watch. But the warning didn't stop anyone. There were no age checks, no paywalls, and no real restrictions. Anyone with an internet connection could click and watch. As traffic grew, so did outside criticism. Parents sent emails after finding out what their children had seen. The webmasters did not apologize. Instead, they posted those emails on the site, with the senders' real names and contact information still visible. Users then went after those parents directly, making fun of them for speaking up. This created a culture where the site felt less like a public place and more like a private club with its own rules. People who complained were treated like outsiders. The webmasters replied to anyone who sent negative feedback, then published those responses on the site for everyone to read. The original senders' names and email addresses were left completely visible, with nothing hidden. Every complaint was turned into new material for the audience. The turning point from underground project to legitimate business came after a mention on a nationally syndicated radio show. The host talked about the site on air, and the traffic that followed forced the creators to quit their day jobs and treat it as a full-time company. They set up a legal business in Georgia and built serious technology behind the scenes. The site ran on multiple servers, sharing the workload and pushing huge amounts of data. At its peak, the platform claimed 7 million unique visitors per month, with 4 million page views every single day. One entire server was dedicated to tracking numbers. It read log files from the other machines to see exactly what users watched, how long it tracked, how long they stayed, and which content received the most clicks. A small team ran an affiliate program that directed traffic to paid adult websites. The business model relied on advertising revenue from adult entertainment companies, since mainstream brands would not place their ads next to violent content. The company's president even admitted that real violence and shocking stories were good for business. When militant groups released videos of hostages, the site posted them in full. When the September 11th attacks happened, they kept their servers running while many other websites crashed. They claimed they were exposing the truth, arguing that mainstream media hid the reality of war and violence. They said their site showed the world as it really was, but the reality was much simpler. Every shocking video brought in more viewers, and more viewers meant more advertising revenue from the only sponsors willing to be associated with that kind of material. The site kept making headlines, but two events stood out more than the rest. In March of 2006, the webmasters posted videos from an Asian producer that showed cruelty toward kittens, upsetting a large number of people. More videos followed, showing the same person harming other small animals. For a site that had hosted extreme material for years without hesitation, the reaction was surprising. One of the founders later admitted publicly that the footage made him cry, but they did not remove the videos. Instead, they added a link to a donation page for an animal welfare group, as if raising awareness somehow justified showing the footage. 2 months later, a visitor named Lisa emailed the site threatening to report the videos to the police. The webmaster posted both her email and his reply, tearing apart her arguments line by line and defending his decision to keep the videos online. He claimed that showing the material raised awareness and gave people a chance to donate. The exchange revealed a pattern that had existed for years. The site did not just host disturbing material, it used the outrage directed at it as fuel, and that had been happening long before those videos ever appeared. 3 years earlier, the same tactic had played out around a real tragedy. In March of 2004, security footage from a New York City housing project showed a young man named Paris Lane ending his life in a lobby. The footage came from a police camera system installed across 15 housing projects throughout the city. The original recording remained in police custody, but somehow, a copy found its way online. It appeared on the site under a mocking title. The young man's foster mother soon began receiving calls from people who had watched her son's final moments on the internet. She contacted the police, who opened an internal investigation and obtained a court order to identify the people running the site. The video was removed from the homepage soon afterward, but by then, the damage had already been done. The police examined every possible explanation for how the footage had been leaked. They investigated whether someone had broken into the digital security system, although the department said that had never happened before. The original disc remained in police custody as evidence, meaning the leak likely came from someone with authorized access or from a copy made during the review process. Investigators obtained a court order to identify the people behind the website, but the owners were shielded by corporate structures and user upload policies that made legal action difficult. The video was removed from the homepage soon after the foster mother contacted the police, but by then it had already been downloaded, shared, and re-uploaded across countless other websites. The Internal Affairs Bureau continued investigating the leak, yet no public explanation was ever released. The man most people associated with the site was Paul Deenan. He called himself the editor-in-chief, but his past was far from ordinary. He never finished high school, and years later, he ended up working for a company that was later exposed as a front for a criminal organization. He left after they asked him to do something illegal. Not long afterward, the entire operation was shut down by law enforcement. He eventually moved to Atlanta, where he met the people who would go on to start the website with him. Paul became the public face of the site. Whenever people questioned why it hosted real violent videos, he was the one defending it. When critics accused the site of helping militant groups by spreading their footage, he argued that mainstream news networks caused more harm through nonstop coverage. He claimed that watching those videos made him even more determined to fight back. By the mid-2000s, the legal and financial problems had become too much. The site was facing lawsuits, court orders, and a constant stream of complaints. Server costs alone reached between $30,000 and $40,000 per month. Mainstream advertisers wanted nothing to do with the platform, leaving it completely dependent on sponsors from the adult entertainment industry. The community that formed around the site developed its own rules and social hierarchy. Longtime users became familiar names in the forums, and newcomers were expected to keep up in a place where almost nothing was off limits. The creators understood that they were not just building a collection of shocking material, they were creating a community where becoming numb to it all was treated like a badge of honor. Scrolling past adult content, a flash game, and disturbing footage all on the same page became completely normal. Psychologists would later describe this as the mind's way of protecting itself from repeated exposure to disturbing material. But inside the forums, it was just another ordinary day. In the spring of 2008, the original owners sold the site to an adult entertainment company. The new owners removed all of the shocking content, the forums, and the dark humor. They added age verification and live camera feeds. The buyers wanted the traffic and the users, but they also needed a website that could process credit card payments without attracting legal problems. The violent clips and videos showing animal cruelty had become a liability, so they removed everything. Only the name remained. The original creators moved on. Some tried to build new communities, but the internet was already changing into the cleaner, more controlled space we know today. There was no longer room for a website that mixed extreme content with games and called it entertainment. Even today, people still talk about the site on old internet forums. Many remember spending hours on it, just like people spend hours on social media today. They describe it as an early version of the hidden web, a place with almost no rules. Some documentaries and online videos still mention it when discussing the early internet. But people usually remember only the parts they want to remember. They remember the thrill of seeing something they knew they should not. What many forget is that a large number of those clips showed real people experiencing real suffering.